Miami Beach is probably one of the more aggressive cities working on this. While the region has been planning for quite some time, and there's a lot of collaboration and planning with the Southeast Florida Regional Climate Compact, Miami Beach has really shown that how you take from that planning to action. And it's kind of an interesting story. The city commissioners and the mayor that ran in about 2013, they ran on a platform of actually tackling this issue of dealing with the floods. And so there was a real mandate when they came on board to fund this project. And so they didn't wait for the state or they didn't wait for the feds. They actually increased the stormwater management fee that our residents pay, and they've created a stormwater management program. It's about $405 million program, about 5 to 6 year program, where they're installing pumps and elevating roads around the city of Miami Beach. It's already working. Obviously, parts of our cities already have been elevated. We have installed the pumps, and when we have those king tides, the pumps are working. So we're adapting over time. We're looking at these guiding documents, we're elevating the roads, and we're still enjoying beautiful Miami Beach.
More pumps. Woo! That's why it's dry over there.
What we've been talking about is the public investment in the stormwater system, but our resilient strategy is much broader, and we have been looking at our land use and our zoning, and we've made changes to those regulations. So for new construction, there are new elevation standards going up, and I think all cities need to start looking at that. As we invest on the public side, we also need to invest in the private side and then figure out how the two meet and harmonize as we start to incrementally adapt this city.
Because the assumption is Miami Beach isn't going anywhere.
Miami Beach is beautiful, and people want to live here, and there's no reason why we can't adapt. When the streets flood, when things are happening in your own city, people call City Hall. And so I think our elected leadership is just responding to what our community wants, and they want action. And so don't talk about sea level rise, don't talk about climate change, don't point fingers on who did it or why or whatever. It's really just about serving the residents and serving the community. But we're preparing and we're planning and we're hoping that at the right time and the place we'll get more support from the state and the feds. Well, there's dollars that come to us for infrastructure investment. A lot of cities all over the country have aging infrastructure. We get dollars through FEMA after an emergency. Why can't we get dollars from FEMA before an emergency so we can start to invest? How can we start to take existing state and federal funding mechanisms and actually tweak a little bit so we start to invest in our city before an event? Those are the kinds of things that we've been talking about.
See how the water is coming from underneath the seawall. See that?
Was there a fight?
No fighting. There's no fighting in climate change adaptation. Well, like I said, to us, it's a local government issue. We were having floods in our streets. We were having issues with people trying to get on a bus, and the community said, no, we have to do something about this. The electeds got in place. They took a courageous step. They increased their stormwater fee, and we have an incredible public works department, engineers, and planners next door that are designing and constructing as we speak. If you drive around the beach today, and you will see roads being elevated. What was happening was that sunny day flooding. So it wasn't a rain event. It was actually the high tides. These things are going to start happening more and more with what we know about climate change. And yes, it was an inconvenience, but there was personal property loss with cars, people having to travel, go to work. So why be inconvenienced when you can invest in your city and be resilient? We definitely want to make sure that we're monitoring water quality in Biscayne Bay as we install these pumps. We're putting in protections in terms of the pump system that is replacing the gravity outfall actually has different compartments in the system to capture some of the pollutants that are in an urban center, the bottles and things like that people throw out. So we're trying to learn with every adaptation effort so that the next one gets just a little better and a little better. And we're really we're the textbook for so many other cities watching what we're doing. And so, yeah, we live and learn every day.
Are very different from one property to another. It depends on what is the base flood elevation of the area where the house is located, and the conditions of the house, the elevation of the floor, and also other sections of the structure if they are in compliance with the FEMA requirements. You own a house and your house is elevated above the base flood elevation. Your insurance cost, the premium of your insurance is going to be much more lower than a house that has the finished flood elevation below the base flood elevation.
What is the base flood elevation?
The base flood elevation is an elevation established by statistics of the last 100-year average flooding in an area.
So for here, for instance,
this area is 8 feet.
8 feet.
8 feet.
And the houses are how high generally?
There are houses.
Buildings.
There are houses built. There are buildings that are at 4.
At 4.
4 feet only.
We can educate people to their own circumstances so they know what to expect, even if it's going to be a full-blown construction, a horrible experience that's going to last a year in front of their home. At least they know what to expect, and there's hope at the end of the tunnel. Started with the worst of the flooded areas first, but now as we get into the single-family neighborhoods, you're really hitting home. Yes, you hit to some of the neighborhoods that we're reconstructing them. Remember, we're putting in storm drains. That's sort of the overall project. The storm drains range in size up to 96 inches in diameter. I can drive a car through them. So if I'm putting that pipe in the street that's in front of my home, that's a big hole. And when I'm digging up that dirt, there's a lot of moving parts. Basically, with the sea level rise, all the storm water flows to the sea. If you think about what had been was a catch basin in the street, went to a pipe out in the water, probably underwater. And so as you watch that water rise, that water is going to come back and flood the street. Step one was stop the flow coming back. We can do that with a check valve. That means the water can only go one way. That works as long as the tide is low. But as the tide is high, or the seas rise, now I have to move that water. It's now trapped. That's where the pump comes in. I need to introduce a pump to push the water out. That works until the sea gets higher. Now I need a bigger pump to pump more water. So when we're building the pump stations, what we're doing is actually looking at building something today that's going to last for tomorrow. So if I have to replace that pump because I need a bigger pump, I've already sized the station big enough to handle a bigger pump. The pipes I'm putting in the ground will last 100 years. The pump station, it's concrete for the most part, that will last 100 years. The pump that's in there is only going to last 20 years. So I might size the station to last me 100 years, but I'm going to size the pump to last 20. I'm not going to put in a massive pump that's only going to last 20 years. Miami Beach is very fortunate in a way that we have such an investment in the properties that are here. The incremental investment in the infrastructure that's needed is relatively small compared to the overall dollar amount of what we're going to produce.
It's a rich community, in other words.
It is.
Relatively speaking.
But, I mean, it is in one sense, but it also has the density of Manhattan.
This is a huge project, and to a great extent, Miami Beach is the canary in the mine shaft. And having a canary in the mine shaft is a great thing for everybody but the canary. We're trying to do something that not many other cities have done. And how we do it, I think we got to really think about. I credit with the commission for pushing it forward and really saying we can't forget about it for future generations. But I also want to make sure that whatever assumptions we're relying on have been challenged sufficiently to make sure that we're doing it the right way. Because I want to make sure that something that has such a long-term approach, 20, 30, 40 years, we don't at some point regret that we did the wrong way at the beginning because we just hadn't asked enough questions and challenged our own group think sufficiently. So I hope that, I want that to happen. it's called a red team, where you bring in people who are experts and they look at it and they decide, well, yeah, that's good, but maybe you should do it this way, or maybe there's another approach, or maybe something can wait. Well, listen, I think it's hard to deny it when you have flooding in the middle of the day.
But they do, don't they?
When there's sunshine.
But they do, right?
Yeah, they deny it, but the citizens know that it's real because they walk outside their homes and they see flooding. So it's not something that's deniable. And maybe some folks will feel better if they can argue it's not created by man's actions or not. I don't really care what they think, so long as they keep their eyes open and see the fact that they're standing in water and in the middle of a sunny day. So whatever money we can get that's not taxpayer money down here, and I think we are a regional area. We provide an economic engine for the region, so I think, in the state, frankly, and so I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to try to get as many resources as you can from elsewhere to the extent they're available. I'm not sure they are right now, but they ought to be, and I think as people start to look at this more carefully, I think they're going to see that this is not just a local issue, but it's a regional or a national issue.
The reason we're having these meetings now is because we're actually moving our way through the island. And so we've done some of the multifamily area, Sunset Harbor, that commercial area is now complete. But now we're actually moving into more neighborhoods. And so as construction is happening right in front of your home, people have questions. And what's it going to look like? How long is it going to take? What's the elevation? And that's why we're doing these conversations. It's basically brand new infrastructure coming into the neighborhoods. Well, it depends. It's new water, new stormwater, and new wastewater, and then repaved roads, and then new lighting. So it's really a lot of investment coming into the neighborhood. The elevation kind of depends on where you're at. There's no one size fits all. We're working our way through the beach and really investing in every neighborhood. And if you're lower lying, as the resurface, you might come up a little bit. If you're in higher elevation, it's just the pipes. So it really kind of depends. The unified sea level rise projections that we use for planning purposes. It was developed by local scientists and engineers and city, county planners based on the international models that came out in 2012 and 2015, but then really localized to us. And so this is a tool that local governments now have. And the projections are by 2030, anywhere between 6 to 10 inches, and 2060, and like a foot to 2 feet. And that's from the 1992. And we do know that already we've experienced about 4 inches or so of sea level rise. So our engineers are actually taking this into consideration as they are designing the neighborhood and designing the drains and the pumps and the pipes. It takes this into consideration to accept that water.
So let me just do this. Here, Bob, get on here. What's this big orange line?
The orange line is really the one for a higher risk. Let's say you're building a hospital, a power plant, something that you want to last a long time. You would use that standard. But for the general kinds of things that we invest in cities, in roads and bridges and buildings, we use these numbers. And then, of course, there's much more uncertainty out here. So it's kind of like when you see those hurricane cones.
Yes.
There's more certainty here closer. It gets a little more uncertain there.
Well, I'm not seeing the cone go down.
Well, no.
There's no downward.
The cone is not going down. No. But we are planning for the cone going up.
Yeah.
The work that we're doing today should take us to about 2050, 2060, somewhere in there. The new generation of city managers, engineers, residents, there could be more technology. Maybe the curve actually starts to change and go down. What we're doing is what we call incremental adaptation. We build today, we reduce our risk today and for the next few years, and hoping that the next generation of innovators can build upon what we did. And as we get closer to these numbers, we continue to enjoy as best as possible.